вечер во 10-минутното интервју на телевизија 21. Драматични се случувањата во Македонија, но драматични случувања се има и насекаде во светот. Вчера во Британија, во Лондон се случи напад кој се смета за терористички, кој заврши со 5 жртви. За оваа тема и повеќе за случувањата во Македонија вечерва разговараме со британскиот амбасадор во Република Македонија, господинот Чарлс Гарет. Welcome in our studio. Ви благодарам што дојдовте и што одвоивте време.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
Mr. Ambassador, I'm very sorry about the victims in London yesterday. Our thoughts are with their families. Do you have more information? What happened? Who stands behind the attack? And what was the possible message?
Well, thank you for your condolences. The facts are still being established in London, and the authorities are working hard to do that, even as we speak. The Prime Minister made a statement yesterday in which she described the attack as a sick and depraved terrorist attack. And I think that for the victims and their families and their friends, this is a truly appalling tragedy. I think if there's anything that one can draw out of this that is positive, it is in the example shown by the emergency services, who were really quite extraordinary yesterday in reacting and responding to it. And not least in the bravery of the one policeman who sadly lost his life. The choice of target, the Parliament in Westminster, is absolutely no accident. It is a global symbol, an iconic symbol, if you like, of values such as democracy and rule of law, freedom of expression, and all that goes with it. And I can only say that whatever terror or violence is thrown at it, will not achieve us in overturning those values.
You can probably recall the atmosphere in London from the 2005 when extremely big attack happened and 52 people has died. The Londoners wanted to show that they are going to proceed with normal life and normal values of the democracy. Is the atmosphere the same today in London? What do you have information?
It's difficult to judge because back then, on the 7th of July in 2005, I was in London and part of that response. And though we were all totally shocked by it, it was a source of great pride to Londoners how we responded to it. Today, of course, I'm in Skopje, and so watching from afar. But I saw just this morning a sign with the red and blue circle of the London Underground, with instead of the station name, "We are not afraid." And I think that speaks of the same attitude, a very staunch, proud attitude, that we will not let this scare us.
Mr. Ambassador, let's talk about this region and the situation in this country. Macedonia is in turmoil, in an institutional and political crisis which lasts long. Are you afraid, are you concerned how long this situation is bearable before something cracks?
Well, I mean, that's a very difficult question to answer scientifically, if you like. The crisis has been going on for 2 years now, and we've got to a point where the tensions are clearly growing. It's a very sensitive moment, and it's one in which political leaders really must do all they can to avoid exploiting the situation for their own interests and to de-escalate by making doing the right things and saying the right things to encourage people not to lose control in any way. But I think it's very important that we get through this particular moment, because that 2-year stretch of political crisis has taken us so far. We are close to achieving something on the basis of the elections back in December, and I think that we need to focus on that and ensure we move forward.
What could be the next possible measures by the international community? There was an enormous pressure to the president of Macedonia, Mr. Ivanov, to change his mind, but obviously he hasn't changed his mind until this moment.
Well, I mean, the international community have made absolutely clear what their position is. 67 MPs out of 120 is a clear majority and should be allowed to govern because they want to govern. Many statements have made clear that the belief of many in the international community that President Ivanov should go back on that decision. And we've heard that in messages from Commissioner Hahn this week and before, from Stoltenberg, from Tsanye, from Washington, from Berlin, from London, from many others. I think when you hear so many of your closest friends and partners with the same message, then one really needs to listen to it.
There is an enormous gap between people in the Macedonian political bloc. Are you concerned about the stability not just in Macedonia but in the region as a result of this division practically?
Well, I think that has become apparent in the last few days, in the last few weeks, I should say. And it's not just a question of political leaders in this country doing everything they can to de-escalate. It's a responsibility of political leaders everywhere to ensure that the situation doesn't progress from bad to worse. But I think we also need to keep an eye on the causes of this crisis and understand how we've got to where we are. The political crisis started 2 years ago with these allegations that came up in the wiretap recordings, which had allegations about criminality and corruption and electoral malpractice and many other things, which need to be answered. Those questions need to be properly investigated and accountability for them achieved. So this isn't just about not allowing the current situation to spread out, to spill over. It's about focusing on what the real causes of this crisis are and ensuring that movement towards resolving those is achieved.
What should be the first steps, priorities for the new government?
When it takes office, it has a huge task in front of it about moving the country back onto what we would call an even keel, back into some sort of balance or equilibrium, but focusing very rapidly and very determinedly on implementing reforms. That is a huge task. But the very good news for Macedonia is that it is set out in great detail what needs to be done in the urgent reform priorities, in the PREBA report which went before that, and of course in many Commission reports over the years. And another piece of very good news is that we have a wide group of international community friends and partners from Macedonia, including the United Kingdom, who want to support Macedonia in achieving those goals.
I'll just guess that you were asked to judge about so-called Albanian political platform by some of the politicians in Macedonia. Did you? What is your attitude?
The joint statement, as I think it's technically known, the joint statement is a series of proposals and ideas which are, it has to be admitted, sensitive. There's no doubt about that. But they are also very important to a lot of people in this country, and as such deserve a wide, public, thorough national debate. And the best place for that, of course, in any parliamentary democracy is in Parliament.
Just shortly, you were very, very optimistic in one short text months ago about Macedonia in 10 years. How do you see, do you share the same attitude about Macedonia in 10 years now?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, this is a country with enormous potential to develop and a lot of support from outside, a lot of support from inside the country as well, to achieve stronger institutions, more security, more stability, stronger democracy, stronger rule of law. The potential is all there. It's about focusing people's energies in the right direction.
Mr. Ambassador, just shortly, in a week's time, UK will start negotiations with EU for getting out of European Union.
Right.
What kind of process you expect? What kind of future you expect for the Britain outside that organization?
Well, it's going to be a long and very complex and at times very difficult process. There's no doubt about that. And people are preparing for that start. We'll be issuing the letter on Wednesday next week. I would say, though, that because our aim is to not just to leave the European Union, but to result in a new relationship between the UK and European partners and friends and allies, we will end up in a place which is very constructive for all concerned. And if you take the region and this country, for example, our interests are going to be exactly the same as they always have been. And so we will continue to have an interest in developing security and stability and prosperity of Macedonia. And we will continue to provide the support in order to achieve that.
Јас ви благодарам за учеството во 10-минутното интервју на телевизија 21. Разговаравме со британскиот амбасадор, господинот Чарлс Гарет.